Tanshikiwa, hello, how are you all? Welcome to Homelands, originally produced on CFCR 90.5 FM in Saskatoon, Homelands of the Métis and Treaty 6 territory. This is your favorite auntie, Andrea Letting Dishney-Kashoot, and I am your Auntie Andy, your host. And we are joined today by the wonderful Jessica Generoux. And she is a prominent Saskatchewan-based librarian, project coordinator, and advocate for Indigenous literacy and culture. She's a member of the Sturgeon Lake First Nations and has dedicated her career to fostering a love of reading and preserving Indigenous traditions through storytelling. Jessica serves as a key organizer and project coordinator for the Saskatchewan Aboriginal Storytelling Project, a province-wide initiative that has grown significantly over the past 2 decades. For the past 10 years, she's been one of the key project organizers for Saskatchewan Indigenous Storytelling Month, which is, of course, February. So, yeah, welcome, Jessica.
Thank you for having me.
And what would you like to tell us about storytelling in general and a little bit of history about Storytelling Month? And where would
Oh,
you like to
sure.
start?
Well, I would definitely would love to share a bit of my personal experience with revitalization and reconciliation over the past 10 years, working in libraries my whole life. So libraries have always been a huge part of who I am since I was a little girl. Growing up in Prince Albert in, the rough area. One of my safe places was the Prince Albert Public Library. Um, I used to go there with my family and pick out a book and find a safe place, a comfortable place to sit and read and read. And that was my first, one of my core memories of having that safe space where I can explore different ideas, I can explore different characters in books, and I would just get lost in these books. And I just loved reading so much that I would take home a whole bunch of books and just chew right through them. And then every weekend we would go back and I would get more books. And I was very young. I started reading when I was just past 1 years old. So I just had this insane love for reading. And then over the years, I've worked in Indigenous programming with the Regina Public Library for over 7 years. And I got to participate in coordinating and developing and delivering Indigenous programming with one of my core mentors, Wendy Sinclair, who works with the Regina Public Library currently today. Um, I was stationed at Albert Branch in the North Central community, and I worked out there for about 7 years. And I got to in incorporate Indigenous stories, voices, and memories into the early childhood literacy programming. So I was involved with the doing story times for babies, toddlers, and preschoolers for that 7 years. And during that time, um, we we were also doing puppet shows, and we started developing puppet shows that we would incorporate Cree and and traditional knowledge. Um, and I found a lot of our fantasy books were not so much fantasy, or there was a component to it where we were allowed to explore that idea a bit more, and we incorporated that information into the libraries, into the programming. So at that time in the between 2013 and 2018, there was a lot of I was learning. I was I was learning the Cree language, and while I was learning the Cree language, and this was with um, Natalie Owl. She is one of the core language revitalizers in Canada and Saskatchewan. I was working with her at her programming and learning Cree with her programming. And I would incorporate the Cree into the Indigenous programming at the public library. And especially when we're learning our numbers, our animals, our colors, and weather and feelings, and incorporating that into the preschool story time. So I started to not only find my my voice and my connection with my own culture and language, because my family is has been impacted from the residential schooling. We have been impacted by intergenerational trauma, and we are currently in the process of exploring our healing journeys through the intergenerational healing as well. So at the time, I didn't know the scope of what I was doing and why it was so important for me to not only teach myself, but to share what I learned with the little ones. Um, and then I went on to become one of the first Indigenous interns with the University of Saskatchewan Library and explore more of the incorporating the Indigenous knowledge systems and identity into the library services. So it was a really throughout when I look back now, I look back at all of that, and I have a bigger picture and a deeper perspective. And I feel that there was a bigger movement going on, and I just wasn't quite aware of it, but I was just following my heart and my intuition. Um, and that brought me to where I am today, being part of the library services for Saskatchewan Aboriginal people. I was the SIS coordinator and becoming very connected with the work that we're doing, and which has been very humbling. I've been learning on this journey as well with everyone else, but the most important thing that I've experienced is I've experienced the incredible honor and respect of working with Indigenous storytellers, elders, knowledge keepers, the librarians that spend countless hours working towards reconciliation through their libraries. I recognize also the importance of the reconciliation that's taking place when communities partner together and create Indigenous storytelling projects, events. Um, I can look back at, the events that are taking place in Humboldt a couple of years with the treaty commissioner, and we look back at the work that was taking place of igniting that spirit of reconciliation with the communities surrounding Humboldt, and with the art gallery and the schools coming together and going, you know what, we want to take part in this project. We want to take part in this program. We want to help deliver a session. We want to host a storyteller. How do we host a storyteller? And that is a question that's not as simple as just picking up the phone and booking them in. There's a protocol involved, and there's a certain intention that has to be there, that respect of of the stories that we ask. And we also, once we once we get involved in the storytelling program, then we start exploring that there's a there's a bundle, and there's a sacred bundle involved with the storytelling teachings. And because it's such a huge component to the Indigenous identity and how we pass on our language, how we pass on our parenting, our teachings of living a good life, um, especially with the chaotic world we're in today. It seems to keep us grounded and connected to one another, and it definitely maintains our humanity. So that's the whole nutshell in the my experience with it. And one of the major shifting experiences that connected me to the sacredness of storytelling is that yes, we have stories that we share with the celebration, the month-long celebration in February, the declaration. Yes, we're very we're very aware of the stories, but I've also started learning there's many type of stories. There's some stories that we'll never share publicly. They'll always stay within the ceremony or within the family or within the relationship between the storyteller, the knowledge keeper, and the mentor, the learner. We learned about war stories, historical. Um, it's just it's just so beautiful, and it's such a gift, and it's such a gift to be a part of this process, and it's such a gift to be so connected in. Um, so a couple of years ago, when I was working for the Saskatchewan Indigenous Cultural Center, I worked in the library and archives for about 7 years, and I took care of the library and the archives for 7 years. And during that time, we inherited repatriation of the Buffalo Child Stone. And was a that was a huge spiritual journey that I didn't know I was getting involved in, because you have your librarian hat on, and you're looking at the project through a librarian's lens, and with archives and the oral history, the records, um, the research process as well. But I was very fortunate enough to be involved with the ceremonies that took place, for the repatriation process, with the elders and the knowledge keepers that came together to bring Buffalo Child Stone back home. The story of the Buffalo Child Stone, I believe, is paramount to the our treaty nations within Saskatchewan, and our and brings together all of our nations within Saskatchewan. And it also brings together the story itself also situates the Indigenous people and their spiritual connection to the land prior to Saskatchewan even being created, prior to the residential schooling, the colonization, basically in a nutshell, colonization, and the spiritual strength our communities had and our people had. Um, and that's the energy and the intention I carry into the work that we do today. I can't quite explain it or conceptualize it completely yet, but I just feel it. Just because I was fortunate enough to be a part of the process with Buffalo Child Stone, and being a part of those ceremonies has completely shifted me for the rest of my life, and especially in the work that I do, and and the the um, the processes involved, not only with storytelling, but also with empowering our children and our youth with literacy, um, and building those healthy communities through library services. What does that look like? It just really installed in me a deeper appreciation and compassion for what we're doing and also what we're going through, and utilizing storytelling as a healing method, as a healing mode for intergenerational healing. Um, so that's where I can. Mhm.
That's awesome. That's a great kind of overview of kind of your story and the staircase you kind of been climbing towards building all of this, and tell us more about Storytelling Month. Like how did that come to be, and your involvement there, and kind of the guiding principles of it, and the history and that kind of thing.
For sure. So the Library Services for Saskatchewan Aboriginal People was formed in 1991 to increase Indigenous involvement in libraries, to increase Indigenous employment within libraries, training Indigenous people to become employed in libraries, creating safe spaces for Indigenous people within libraries. So there's a whole concept behind it. And during that time, the the librarians that came together and provided, this was all volunteer work. So a large component of the 2 decades of Indigenous Storytelling Month is completely been successful because of volunteers. And there's they're just the people come together that really want to participate and really want to learn, and also they have a lot to share, and it happens so naturally. So the Indigenous Storytelling Project was created from the LSAP committee about 23 years ago, and it was created to protect, promote, and preserve Indigenous storytelling and oral history and oral traditions within Saskatchewan. And they wanted to create a project that would continue every year, building in momentum and participation and partnerships that it needed to carry forward the knowledge transfer that happens with storytelling. So that, to me, at the time of creating that, was a, a really that's a really deep scope for me at the time, 23 years ago, to go, we really need to do this. And this is how we're going to do it. We are just protecting the knowledge transfer that takes place between storytelling. And we can't, if we protect the custom of storytelling, we can protect how we learn from one another and how teachings are passed down, how people are empowered and are healing. Um, and that's been the message that's been carried in the vision of the Saskatchewan Indigenous Storytelling Project for over those 2 decades. We have come from we have grown in numbers, and there's been a few bumps. Like one of the big bumps was COVID, and I think a lot of people were affected by COVID. A lot of programs that rely on public funding, and that relied heavily on volunteers, and especially with partnerships. COVID impacted the project within that. When you look at the bigger picture, you could see um, it impacted it, but it also we had less we had less programs, but we had about 30,000 more people involved. So we had thousands of people connected on virtual programming. So the whole year during COVID, storytelling kept trucking. Thanks, very, very thankful to the strength and the hard work of Carol Vandell. Carol Vandell pulled the storytelling project through the COVID years. She was the one of the coordinators before me, and she really set it up for the resilience that it needed. Like if we can get through this, we can get through anything. And that to me was really, really amazing. And definitely over the years, the partnerships shift. So I also noticed the partnerships shift. Most of the time, the partnerships we have are within the regional library systems. So Saskatchewan is composed of 13 about 13 municipal and regional library systems that cover all of the geographic area in from Southeast Regional Library, which is headquartered in Weyburn, from Palliser Regional Library, Chinook Regional Library, which covers the Maple Creek, Swift Current area. Um, Also the Wheatland region too, that there we have those branches there like Lucky Lake, Watrous, Wapiti, and the northern regions too as well. So we see we see the coverage come together with the programming, and that's why one of the reasons why the project has been so successful every year is because of the commitment within those partnerships, within those regional library systems, and the importance that all of us share together and come together every year. And so I want to, give my hats off to the librarians and the staff within those regional library systems. They have their partnerships it's a 50-50. Like we can only do so much, but we can't do everything. We can't cover 100 plus locations every year and 100 plus programs. And it seems like a lot, and it seems like a lot happens in February, but we have so much more to do, and we have so much room to grow, and that's how I see it as well. Mhm.
That's awesome. It's a really good kind of basis of the history. And um, what about just storytelling in general? Like, can you talk about like the importance of it and the traditions of it, and maybe like protocols that are appropriate to share, the importance of having during the winter months, those kind of things,
Yeah.
for the listeners that might not know as much about
Yes.
storytelling? Yeah.
Yeah, the with many of our creation stories and what I have been taught growing up and what I've been taught from my grandparents is that there's a lot of stories that cannot be shared until there's snow on the ground. And that is the mode of the connection where the mode where the family is closer together. They're not so busy with in the other seasons, right? Picking berries, or there's a lot of time to connect at home, to come together and to learn how to listen. So that was one of the first stories I was told was the when I had my son, my little guy, he's 3 years old now. And one of the first stories, there was a story attached to that teaching. And that teaching involved the placenta and his belly button, which I kept after he was born. And I kept it just out of instinct. I just felt like I needed to keep it. And I was very adamant with the hospital, like, give it to me. So, and I'll put it in the fridge or the freezer or something. And I didn't know why, but I had that strong urge to take it and keep care of it. And over the course of about I would say 9 months, there was a series of events that were happening that what I would call just like serendipity. Like I started meeting the knowledge keeper that started teaching me how to take care of his placenta and his belly button and why. And she started sharing stories of how children were involved within those first ceremonies where like children brought the ceremonies to the people. And because of their pure hearts, they were able to trust us with it and teach us what to do with our um, traditional values. And I and how important it is to take care of the to take care of those items for our babies because it keeps them connected to the lodge. The lodges keeps them connected to the ceremonies. And that's where she shared with me the stories of the lodge and the tree, why we find a certain tree, um, and what that tree means and where do we go. And when we put the tobacco down, what's that intention? What does that protocol mean when we put that tobacco down and we ask for our our child to be connected to the circle, to be connected to the ceremonies, and to be connected to his spirit in a powerful way, and to find his way through life with the safety net of our culture and our ceremonies. And I didn't I didn't have that experience with my first child who's 16. um I actually lost her belly button because I didn't know, right? So I there was a lot of things I didn't know with how the protocols and the spirituality and the stories behind our traditional parenting methods and our traditional parenting modes. And I learned all that through storytelling with my second baby too. And the stories that I was shared were I would say hundreds of years old. And I was told I could share this. I could share this with other women. I could um I could talk about the importance of the placenta and the belly button with our babies and how important it is to keep our children connected to the our lodges and our ceremonies and the share the stories some in moments. So there's some stories that I'll just mention but I won't share. Um but a big part of that those teaching that those teachings that I received, a large component was through storytelling. And I would call that more sacred storytelling. And so that experience that I had um, where a lot of it is we could share it publicly and a lot of it would be shared within a certain in a proper way with proper protocol and with the proper people. But being on like television or radio, we could talk about it, but that kind of leave out the details just out of respect of the sacred, respecting the sacred there. But just mentioning how that how important those storytelling is not only for me as a new mom, but for hundreds of new moms. Um, and how important it is to take care of our knowledge keepers today and what they know, and preserving what they know, capturing what they know, because that to me empowered not only me as a mom, an Indigenous mom, but it empowered my son for to set him up for a healthy life, a good life. A good life is what is one of the biggest components in one of our teachings too, is how do we live a good life? What does that look like? Respect, um, cleanly, like keeping ourselves clean, keeping our home clean, keeping our bodies and our minds clean, just kind of breaking that down. What does a good life mean? And what does it mean when we put our intentions out there, and how do we learn? And I think the storytelling method is the best way to learn because it captures your heart and your soul, and it connects you to the information and the knowledge that's being shared in a very respectful way. So that is my overall general experience and perspective of storytelling, and I keep why I keep trucking back here with the coordination of it and understanding that there's so many other talented people that have a lot to say and share. And how do we advocate for them? How do we lift them up? How do we help them get their voice out there? How do we share our time and our energy with the process? So and and it's very special, very spiritual. And I'm very glad there's a lot more perspectives to storytelling, and I absolutely love learning, and I absolutely am very aware that um there's an academic perspective, there's it's functional, there's logic, there's so much ways to look at it, but that is just my personal way, just from my personal experience of following my heart the with my son's placenta and his little belly button. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, I wish I knew this when my daughter was born, um, to keep her to ground her and can keep her connected. And she's a very good person. She's a very amazing, wonderful person. Um, but we're still learning too. Like we're still hungry for connection through ceremony. We're still hungry for language. We're still hungry to be for our identity as well. We're still growing into that and following that, and that in itself is a very joyful, but also can be very painful process. Like revitalization and bringing back the songs, bringing back the ceremonies, bringing back the teachings. It could be a very painful process for a lot of us, and being there for each other and having that collective solidarity too, that we're all in this together, we're all here for each other, and we understand that there's a very personal component for everybody involved with storytelling. So I also find that over the years of coordinating this project, everyone that gets involved has an experience, a learning experience. It's like once individuals um, plug into plug into it, they begin to allowing the journey to transform themselves and learn too. So I've gotten that antidote a few times, just the past couple of weeks, and over this 7+ years too of working on the project, not only in the coordinator role but in a volunteer role as well. That Indigenous and non-Indigenous people that come on board to participate, to help, to volunteer their time or their energy, they not end up, but they are blessed with transformative experiences through that. Just that. So I really believe that when we keep and protect and maintain our protocols of with the gifting, the tobacco, and our keeping our prayers strong for each other and for the work that we're doing and protecting the sacredness of it too, we find blessings along the way. Mhm.
Beautiful. Well, that takes us to our break. And when we've been with Jessica Generoux, and when we come back, we'll be with Curtis Pettitu. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.